Since the election last year, we have seen more and more interest among real people who will want to run for office, or at least very unhappy about the way things have been going for one reason or another. And so with that in mind, we put together this three-part series to engage you, engage others in the community, and to answer the questions about elections in Waltham, how to run for office, and what you need to do, and to demystify the process. Last week, Mayor McCarthy spoke about her long career in politics and gave us a first-person view of what it was like to not only at one point be employed by the city, but to be on the school committee, to be a city councilor, and to be mayor. It was a wonderful, wonderful evening. We're going to try to do even better tonight. The idea behind tonight's meeting really came from working the polls for the last half dozen years or so. Betsy Bateman used to work in the clerk's office, and it was her job to find poll workers. You know, those of us who sit at the table when you come in and check out and make sure everything goes well. And so she asked league members, among others, to be there. And I've been at a lot of elections, and it's really, really, truly amazing to me how little we know about the process of politics and elections here in Massachusetts. So again, to help demystify that process, we have a wonderful panel tonight. To my right is Marcia Cruz Redding. She represents the City Democratic Committee in Waltham. Next to her is Beth D'Amato, her Republican counterpart. And to Beth's right is Representative Tom Stanley. Tom has run for local office as well as state office, and he's going to explain or tell us a little bit about his career and the differences between the two. Now, I left work early today because I wanted to make sure I knew what I was talking about. I had another speaker to do this, but she was unable to. Called me yesterday, said, I can't make it tomorrow night. I said, don't worry, I'll do it. And then I said, what in the world did I promise to do? So, but it's a little bit confusing. We have elections every year in Waltham. Do you know that? At least one. One year we had 5 when we were replacing Senator Curry. Am I correct on that, ladies? In the league, I believe so. So what I did was I went down year by year and said, what happens? 2016, who did we vote for? The last election, we voted for the president, our senators, federal representatives, our state reps, our state senators, and our sheriff, plus a lot of other people who aren't so visible. And I'm going to harken back to when I was a junior in high school in 1962. I had a class project. I had to rewrite the Constitution in today's English. And I feel like a constitutional scholar even today. Okay? And what I learned there is that we have 2 senators for every state, and they run for 6-year terms, but we vote for them every 2 years. Now, how did that work out? Oh, we only vote for 1/3 of them every 2 years. But our representatives have terms of only 2 years, so we vote for them every 2 years. Okay, so that explains 2016, 2018, 2020, and 2022. What happens in the in-between years? And that's where we have our local elections. Every 2 years, this year included, we vote for our city councilors. How many wards in Waltham? 9. And how many councilors at large?
6.
So we have 15. Okay. We also vote for a school committee every 2 years. And every 4 years, again in 2019, we also vote for a mayor here in Waltham. That's a 4-year term. Let me see what's on this side. Oh, the sheriff. We'll vote for sheriff again in 2022. That's a 6-year term. But I put this here so that it would kind of demystify it a bit for people who didn't know who. We know we have an election, who we'll be voting for. Now, the other question that arose at the last local election, I had some guy who wanted to know which party the mayor was in because he couldn't find it on the ballot. I said, I have no idea, because our local elections are nonpartisan. They're not Republican, but we always ask you to tell us if we have a, not preliminary, primary, thank you. A primary election, if you're Democratic, Republican, or unenrolled. If you have declared yourself in a party, you have to use that ballot in Massachusetts, and if you're unenrolled, you can vote for either party. Do you know in some states, if you're unenrolled, you can't vote for any party? Each state is different. And so with that in mind, I did a little bit of digging and found out we have both Republican and Democratic local committees, and I wondered what they did. So I figured I'd ask them to share what they do and how they support candidates and issues here locally. Marcia, I'm going to let you have the microphone next.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure being here. My name is Marcia Cruz Redding. I live in Waltham since 2013, and I've been involved with politics probably since I decided to do something to change my surroundings, and that's almost 100 years ago. I don't look like, but I'll share my secret with you later. Anyway, I was living in Newton for almost 10 years, and in Newton I was involved with politics. I was part of the Democratic City Committee in Newton too. I was part of the Human Rights Commission in Newton. And I'm going to tell you that because that's one example to show you how important the local organizations they are, Republicans or Democratic, whatever they are. First, I want to ask you, how many people here are affiliated to a party? Whatever party? Yeah, great. How many people here are affiliated to a church? Or synagogue or mosque? Any kind of religious affiliation. I can see hands all over. How many people are just go to a gym? Hello, you should do that. Everybody. Now, that's the reason why we go to a place, to get connected, to get answers, to be involved and to do something. That's why I'm involved with the, in this case, Democratic Party. And when we moved from Newton, we moved in 2013, in October, before the elections in November. And when we moved, we told our chair in our committee in Newton that we were moving. Then we closed everything that we had in Newton, all the affiliations, and she sent an email to the chair of the Democratic City Committee in Waltham, Robert Logan, Council Robert Logan, Ward 9. And he sent us back an email, oh guys, you're going to be our neighbor. We live three yards down, I don't know. And as soon as we moved to Waltham, he came home, he brought us all the papers to be a member of the Democratic City Committee in Waltham, and he brought us the paper to register in the party, and in the next week we were able to vote. That's an example that I think it's quite real to show us the importance of being engaged, of being affiliated and enrolled in a group. I'm the affirmative action and outreach officer for the city committee. I'm also member of the progressive Waltham, and this is to show that we are really progressive. And I used to be the co-chair of the Latino Democratic Caucus. I resigned 2 weeks ago. Reasons to be discussed later. And I'm a member of the the state committee, Democratic State Committee. And all this engagement, it comes from being engaged locally. When you know that things can change, that things can be better, you engage. And the first step is locally. And being member of the city committee, I learned a lot. I have a network of political friends, of mentors, and that has been helping me to solidify my persona as a political being. You cannot do it alone. And if you engage and you connect to the right channels, you get to be sitting by the side of a state rep, for God's sake. You know what I mean? And he is at the same level as I am. There I see another councillor, Carlos Vidal. He is here with us. Yeah, there. And we have Lawrence here, that also ran for the city committee. Then I think being involved with your local committee helps you to learn, and not only that, they connect you with other groups that can prepare you. For instance, through all my connections in the political party, I did Emerge Massachusetts, I did Mass Alliance training, all the trainings that are out there to make me a councillor, a state rep, a governor, eventually a president if I can change the constitution because I'm Brazilian. Anyway, then this shows me that being connected, apart from doing my civic duty, because we are citizens, it's not for just to have the title of being a citizen, it's to give back. You receive, you give back. And how do you give back? You participate. You share your knowledge, you share your skills, and you help your society to be better. And these days we are living now, we know that we have to be engaged. In one way or another, in one party or another, we know that we have to be engaged because our society needs us. And if we are sitting here and then we go back home and, oh, that was good, that girl, she talked nicely, and then there's another girl, no, you know, you have, and it's easy. Beth was telling me that she saw our website, our committee for the city, we have a website. You can go to the website and you can have information there, how to join us. Then you have the League of Women Voters. There's not only one organization that you can be part of it. There's plenty. And all they are there and they cater for your own interests. If you have a specific interest that the League cannot help you, the Democratic Committee can do it. The Republican Committee can do it. It's just a matter of you doing it.
Marcia, you mentioned Emerge. Can you explain to the audience what Emerge is?
With pleasure. Emerge is a democratic organization that prepares women to run for office. And they have a great program. and you learn how to knock on doors, you learn how to fundraise, you learn public speaking, you learn about the details of politics, the percents, your constituents, and how to present yourself. All these things that we think that are not important, but they are, because the gentlemen, they wear just the suit and the tie and they are all done. But we are the ones that they're going to say, oh, that clothes, she doesn't have sleeves, or she has too much sleeves. She crossed her arms. She showed her ring of 24 carats diamond. All this, they don't show. He could be wearing a diamond and nobody will notice. Yeah? Then emerge, goes deep in all these details that we women would face if we decide to run for office. And in these days, unfortunately, 2017 we are, 21st century, we ladies are still facing this kind of petty stuff. Then Emerge is there to help women to run for office. Then you have Mass Alliance that does the same thing, but for everybody. And Emerge is just for democratic women.
Marcia, thank you very much. Beth,
Wow.
it's your turn.
How do I follow on that? My name is Beth D'Amato. I am the chair of the Republican City Committee. I thank you very much for inviting me. Not really sure, like I said, how to follow that. Was quite a bit. I'm actually here to learn from my counterparts. As I said, I was impressed by the website. They put all their information out there. Meetings and who's on the committee and what gets done. Even the minutes are posted, so that was kind of, I'm like, oh, okay. I'm still learning as chair. This is my, I'm usually, I've been in politics maybe, I don't know, maybe it feels like years. I think it's only been like maybe 7 or 10 years. And I'm used to being behind the scenes doing little stuff. You know, we hold signs or we, you know, work in the campaign, or little things that are behind the scenes. This is my first leadership position. So I'm always afraid of putting my foot in the wrong place and then, you know, not being able to fix it.
Well, let me ask you this. How many people are on your committee?
Well, it's not really, you usually get like the same 20, 25 people that show up when we do have a meeting, you know, and they've been with me for a long time. Diane, Jim, Alan, Joe. Like, but it's like, you know, I'd like to try to tap into the younger crowd, and just getting our name out there is an issue. You know, nobody knows we're here.
Well, let me ask you this question. If I decided to run for state rep as a Republican, what could you do for me?
Well,
Talk about something else.
well, we would probably get like what we always do. We always run other candidates. So I run stuff for other cities. We don't, because I wasn't looking at Waltham. Yeah. But I'm sorry, I am now. So, because I belong to 4 political organizations, I'm split up pretty good. But what we do is we get grassroots people that would, you know, help us do mailings, you know, do signs, do, you know, databases, just anything we can get people. We have to get people motivated to do stuff, and then we would work on that person's campaign. Do anything all they have to do is show up. We want to put a machine together where all they have to do is show up and do the, you know, the campaign speech somewhere. You know, everybody else is doing all this, you know, all the little stuff. That's the machine that's behind it. And that's where we're having like we have a little bit of little slip gears going on here and there, so trying to perfect that. But I have to be honest, I haven't been very attentive to my city committee. Sorry. You know, we've been doing state, national, other cities, and my work at the newspaper is all-consuming. But I will be full speed ahead. And I don't know if there are any other Republicans in the room besides.
I thought you invited a bunch.
I got a few. They're right there. That's the problem with Waltham. When we go to places, like we used to have the thing at Pizzy Farm, the ice cream social, and 5 people there, and they'd say, "Oh, here's all the Republicans in Waltham." But that's why people say, what's the mayor? Everybody just assumes they're all Democrat because they usually 90%, not 90, but a lot of them are. My dad is. I mean, I probably was at one time, Yeah, but it's just, things shift and you go with whatever party fits you, suits you. But as I said earlier, that I think that we all have the same goal. We want the best for everybody. It's just that we look at it differently. We have a different way of getting there. I want to learn, how to, I don't know if your state party helps you finance websites and do all sorts of things, and, I'd like to learn that, and I would like to attend meetings. It all seems like that's all I do, so, but I'm learning stuff, so, but, I just want to, I think it'd be good for a two-party, I know the two-party national system, we're not going to talk about that right now, but you need a little balance. Even on Beacon Hill, there's really no balance there. You need a little check and a little balance, and that's why in Waltham, everybody's considered as Democrat. So if we had a few Republicans in there somewhere, and it would just kind of balance of ideas, if not balance of power of some sort. One-party rule, I wouldn't even want it under Republican one-party rule, because who's watching the Foxes in that house? So you have to kind of make it even. So we're trying, so that's, basically that's it. Sorry. Rep. Stanley. First time I met Rep. Stanley, actually, I told him that seeing me around. Thank you all.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tom Stanley, State Representative for Waltham in the town of Lincoln. And as Annette mentioned, I was also a city councilor for a great number of years, and I've run for mayor. I was born with the political illness of politics in the blood. I can't get it out of my blood, so I've actually run for 17 elections, 17 years in a row straight, and I'm trying to make up for the apathy from the general public for running for office. I was chair of the Democratic City Committee before, and Mike Squilanti, who was on the City Council, was chair of the Republican City Committee. And we used to get together and have, do some things together, like voter registration events on the Common when there was some festival going on or something like that. And it was good exposure and so forth. And then the seat for state representative opened up, and Mike and I were two of the candidates that ran, and we ultimately became the two finalists. And I was fortunate to win that race, and but I still to this day in my office have a framed newspaper from many moons ago of the House of Representatives that Mike and his wife Linda gave to me when I got elected. So in Waltham, partisan politics is nothing like Washington, and I hope it stays that way. We can be passionate about our beliefs, but united in trying to represent our community and what's best for it. So I think I was asked to talk about a little bit of the differences. As it was alluded to, the running for city council or a municipal office, it's in Waltham, it's nonpartisan. First of all, as Annette mentioned, election laws from our founders have been delegated mostly to state government to determine how they want it to be run. That's why, as a lot of us learned during the primary process, it's when a party is determining who is going to be their candidate, it's called a primary. And when it's a nonpartisan election, it's called a preliminary election. So in a primary, there could be theoretically 10 Democrats or 10 Republicans running in the primary. And the person with the most votes gets to represent the party and go on to the final election. In a preliminary, say for city council or school committee, well, first of all, there is only a preliminary if there was one person more than double, the number of seats. So in other words, not explaining it very well, but if there's 6 councilor-at-large seats, which there are, and they're up every 2 years, there has to be 13 candidates or more for there to be a preliminary election. Well, say if there's 17 people running, there's a preliminary, and that's brought down to 12 candidates to go into the final. So it's a little bit different that way, and you generally, people don't talk about partisan beliefs in a municipal election. However, I will tell you, at the door, there is a certain percentage of people that will ask me, will ask you, are you Republican or are you Democrat? And depending on your answer, they'll say, I'm not voting for you, or, you get my vote, and they don't want to know anything else. I mean, that's a small percentage, but there is that segment out there. The best way to run for office is doesn't cost anything. It's just time to get out and door knock, introduce yourself, and tell folks why you're running and that you want to contribute. And believe it or not, most people don't want to talk to you for that long. And that's politically probably a good thing, because you want to meet as many people as possible. And there's only so much time in a day that you have. And in living here in New England, the weather is a big determinant of how many doors you can knock, because you don't get out there. If the spring is bad, then you get out, and then all of a sudden we get into a really hot summer. Not everyone can knock on the doors in a really hot summer. It's hard to do. You don't think that you have to be necessarily a part of a political organization either to run for office. A lot of people have never given that much thought about what their philosophies really are. But if you're involved in the community, some of the my father was mayor of Waltham, and his core support came from Little Nippers baseball. When he was a coach, he coached me and my brothers, and it was a big community affair up there, and you get to meet all the other coaches and the families and so forth. And so it's building relationships. And it can be baseball, or it can be theater. It's a group, or I noticed just recently the new Progressive Waltham was organizing it, but this gas leaks committee. They're going out this Saturday to go and mark where some little machines, I think, to tell them where the gas leaks are, and they're going to mark where they are, just to raise awareness, so forth. And just belonging to a group like that, you get a whole other network of friends that you may not have ever come across. And it's groups like that, and the more groups you're involved with, and if you have been involved with them through the years, you may not realize, but you already have a base of support of people that know you and would more than likely support you running for office. The other thing to remember is it's not that easy, and you don't have to be in Waltham for 100 years. You can be a breezer and run for office. Even people that are not breezers run and lose, and then maybe win. I lost my first time. My father lost his first few times. Sally Flora lost 5 or 6 times, but kept at it, and then she won, and had a streak of winning. So it's just a matter of getting out there. I kind of feel like the public likes to punish you a little bit at first to make you really work for it and come back again to know if you're really serious. So is there anything else that you want me to kind of focus on?
If you could perhaps tell us how the Democratic State Committee supported you in your run for
Well,
your current run.
to be perfectly honest, I never felt like the Democratic State Committee, and probably the same with the Republican State Committee, paid as much attention as they should to the grassroots local level. they tend to spend a lot of their time, money, and attention on, the presidential race, the U.S. Senate races, or the statewide races. So, it really comes down to building your own network in the community and getting out and knocking on doors. We're in Waltham. Some people might have never thought this would happen, but we have our first Latino American city councilor, and he got elected not because he's Latino, because he went out and knocked on doors everywhere in the city. And there were people that I was honored to be asked for advice from him. What should I do? People that have experience, and I'll give anyone advice on what you should do to run for office and most efficiently spend your time. It's up to you to go out and do it. But it is a very rewarding experience. You don't have to know everything about everything. It's okay to say, I don't know the answer to that, but I'll find out. And the most important thing at the local level is people want representatives, councilors, school committee, that will listen to them, pay attention to their constituent needs, get back to them, and give a lot of thought to decisions that you have to make. I think the two biggest things that I do is make decisions, whether it was on the council, decisions that affect people's lives, whether it's building, zoning, codes, things like that, or on the state level, and then also constituent services, helping people navigate the bureaucracy, which is government. And it's just the way the world is that for some reason, they'll pick up the phone when their state representative, they'll get back, every agency is really, really busy, or a department head, but if a city councilor or a state representative is doing their job and they'll call from behalf of their constituent, they'll get the information and be able to help the constituent with their problem that they were having a lot of trouble finding out.
Are you ready? Are you ready to answer questions from the audience?
Sure.
Okay. And would you repeat the questions so that we get it on the
Okay.
Okay.
This is specifically for the committee leads. Sort of, you guys touched a little bit about the connection with the state and federal parties. Could you speak a little bit about how the communication works and what the relationship is at the state and federal level, more like the state level to the city level?
Oh, she wants me to repeat the
I
question.
think they probably heard that time.
What do you need me to repeat the question?
I just wanted to...
From what I got, she wants to know what is the relationship, the basic relationship between the state and the local level. Is that so?
Yes, for the parties.
I'm going to be honest because I think we are in times that we have to be honest. We should not be fooling ourselves. Being at the executive or the state committee and being at the local community, I don't see a very intimate relationship in terms of communication. I read the page of the party. I receive all the emails from the party because I'm in the state committee, and I'm quite sure my chair in my ward and who is the chair of our Democratic Committee city receives the same thing. But as Rep. Stanley said, it's there's a distance in terms of interests. Why? Because we are local.
Right.
And what can we produce? Just local leaders. And if these local leaders don't become councilors or state reps or senates, I don't like this word, but I will say it. The establishment. They don't have how to find out that you exist. Unless you are up there, hello, I'm here and I want to be heard. Then I would say that I would ask both of them and Rep. Stanley to maybe help me a bit more with that. But being at the state committee and being in the city committee, I cannot deny that. From time to time, when the chair of the committee invites one of them up there, they come. The new chair of the Democratic Party, Gus Bigford, what's the last name is Gus Bigford. He was with us, I would say, mid last month. He came to talk about the state party and things that we are going to be doing. From time to time, they come, but they are extremely busy with the upper level. And we are busy with the local level. Then there's that gap, but there's channel to communicate. If we are feeling that, hello guys, you forgot about us, long time, come on, come home for coffee, let's talk. There's the channels are there. We can reach out, and from time to time they will reach out when they need our strength locally. But it's not something that you are in contact all the time. You know, you have to be aware of what's going on up there. But there's different levels. But there's channels, we can talk to them, they will talk to us, and that's why we need more people involved, more people running for office to climb the levels and do what Rep. Stanley was saying, you know, respond to people. Because people who are in the local level need responses from up there too, and they are the intermediaries. If you run for office, you're going to be one of them. That's why we need more people, more women running for office.
Beth, you keep shaking your head yes.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Actually, my state committee man is here, Mr. Dixon. Jim, you went on there last year? When did we? Yeah. Okay. I never even contacted anybody before that, and Jim, whenever I send him an email, he's right on there. And it's funny because the higher echelons from the state committees, and you know, I get the mail about the the fundraiser and the. And I'm just like, yeah, no, because because we have to fight to try to get their attention. They don't want to, but unless I can show them that there's something going on in the city they need to be aware of, which is again what I'm trying to get my names out there and stuff to make them aware. Yeah, that'll be a force to be reckoned with because we put them in there, and we're supposed to nicely, no offense, make their life sort of like a living, not hell, but like, we have to keep them accountable too. Hey, we put you in there, we can take you out the next time. I mean, politically speaking, of course, But seriously, these are classes I've been to, actually, I was hesitant to email Rep. Stanley once because I figured he's a Democrat, he's not going to answer me. How stupid was that? He was right back at me. Wasn't the answer I liked, but I got the answer. Thank you. So I mean, you have to reach out to. So, but that's what's going to be happening, and basically, unless she says it a lot more eloquently than myself. I'm working on that too. I'm not a big public speaker, so.
Any other questions? Tom?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that I think across the nation and locally in Massachusetts and also in Waltham, there's going to be a lot more people running for office. It's going to be a really exciting time for city elections and then for a state representative and other state offices. As Annette, when you started this program, mentioned how there's a lot of people that are upset with what's going on, whether we're on this side of the aisle or the other. And so the good thing out of that is we're going to get a lot more participation. There's going to be a lot more people running for office, and if you're one of those that is thinking of doing it, I would absolutely encourage you to do so, and do it, eyes wide open, and so it's a good, rewarding experience.
Can I just add one thing to that? I'm sorry. I was unenrolled for many years because I didn't want to belong to any, I didn't want to be labeled. But if you want to be part of a city or state committee, you have to be affiliated with a party that, you know, but I would definitely invite people to any of our city committee meetings, regardless of, you know, your party. You just can't vote if we do stuff, but you're always welcome to come, you know?
And
Oh.
Well, just on that, if you're interested in running for a state office, your chances are better if you belong to a party. And in Massachusetts, it tends, you know, historically has been a Democratic Party, but that doesn't necessarily mean it will always be that way, or in this particular year. But if you're unenrolled,
It's more challenging.
yeah, it is more challenging.
Yes.
I was just wondering what would be like the first one you would run for, like the baby steps. So like, what could I do
Sure.
first?
Well, one thing you can do is you can volunteer to be appointed on there's various boards throughout the city, and the mayor appoints and the city council approves. And usually, whoever the mayor appoints, you know, as long as it's not a murder or something like that, which is never the case, the person is approved. And it's voluntary. But you're also, you know, you're on a board which is on TV, and nowadays with, so you're getting a lot of interaction with a lot of people, and, you know, you're on local cable access, so you get exposure that way, so people get to know you. So that's one way to do it. But, you know, there's ward councilor and councilor at large. Councilor at large, you're elected by everyone in the whole city, and the top 6 candidates that get the most votes get in. So it's harder to win at large that way, but so if there's an open seat on the ward level, that's the best way to get in. You're talking about a smaller universe. However, it's always hard to beat an incumbent, whether it's a mayor, state rep, or a ward councilor, not because they're the establishment, but because they've been doing the job. And if people believe that you've been doing the job and they like what you've been doing, they're more than often going to vote for you.
I think another way to approach that is to decide where your passion is. We haven't had anybody up here from the school committee because they're meeting tonight and they couldn't come. That may be another way to look at it. You will want to get training on how to run for office and to find out what the job really entails. I found it interesting last week when the mayor was speaking. Now, she's been on the school committee, the city council, and as mayor, and she said the city council for her was boring. Others just love it and eat it up, but Carlos doesn't find it boring, I'm sure. So, again, find out what the job really entails. Rather, I think some people run for office for the glory instead of really understanding they have to work and do that job. And I think that might guide you in a place where you'll be happy.
Before that, Annette said a word that's crucial. And if we don't embrace that word, we will be doomed in the future. Passion. I'm Brazilian, and we have a saying in Brazil that says, without passion, you can't do anything. And that's one of the things that, thank you for saying, I learned at Emerge. You have to find out what you are passionate about. Be it people, be it numbers, be it shoes.
Issues.
Oh, shoes. Sorry, Annette. I'm passionate about shoes. That's why I heard that one. But anyway, yes, that's one of the things that's important because, as Rep. Stanley said, people will notice what you are about. You knock at their doors. If you are there only for the glory, they are going to read you right there. We think that our constituents, we think that the voters, I'm a voter, and when someone comes to ask me for votes, I just look at them and we think that when we go there, they are not going to be doing that. They will be looking you in your eyes and say, am I going? No. Then passion is important. Rep said, sometimes you don't have to know everything in politics, but if you are passionate enough, they will read and they are going to vote for you.
Georgie, you had a question?
Oh, I'm from Lee. Can I run my public service announcement now? Yeah. Okay.
Come on, in front so we can see you.
Those of us who work at the elections always have the number one question. Do you know what the number one question election officers are asked?
Where do I go?
No.
They know.
They know. The number one question is, why do I have to fill out that damn blue form? If you don't fill out your city census, the city drops you from the election rolls after 2 years. Fill out your census. Every year, you don't have to indicate the number of dogs or cats, or as in New Hampshire, the number of rabbits that you have. It does not increase your taxes. What it does is it proves that you live in the city, and you do not have to fill out a little annoying form, which is a continuous affirmation of occupation. So, this is my public service announcement. I work in Ward 6-2, and this is always the number one question. And why don't people fill it out? Well, it looks like a bill. It's not attractive. What do they do with the information? They use it to determine the number of classrooms we're going to need for children, the amount of ambulance services we're going to need, what the population distribution in the community is going to be, and it kicks into all sorts of things. This is the city census. I'm not talking about the big, every 10-year federal census. This is your local city census. It's quick and it's easy. Please, we get tired of those little blue forms, as tired as the voters do. Thank you.
Just on that note, one of the other, a lot of federal grants are decided upon how many people you have living in your state and where they live and so forth. So that's another reason to do it. And because if you don't, if people don't fill in the census, then other parts of the country will get more of the fair share of federal dollars. And it also determines the number of congressmen and women we have in each state, and we want to make sure we don't lose any more. There's a lot of people who moved to the south through the several decades, so states like Florida have picked up more congressmen, and we've lost one or two. So that's another, other important reason why to fill that out.
You have a question?
Oh, yeah, I was wondering either when the next city census was or how often they do them.
It's every 10 years.
No, every year, every January,
federal.
the city census.
Right.
Federal's every 10.
Well, she didn't say which government census. So,
You're
all
off.
right.
Did you get the answer?
Yes, thank you.
Earlier you said those running for state office would benefit from being enrolled in one party or another. Can you explain the benefits and what those of us who are unenrolled and intend to stay unenrolled, what other avenues there are?
Sure. Well, I did mention that I didn't think that the state parties do enough for the local candidates. However, people come out, unfortunately, for municipal elections, the voter turnout is a lot lower. But for state elections, it's higher, and then when we have presidential election, it's really high. And when people come out to vote for presidential, a lot of people only come out to vote for a presidential election. And when they do, if they're a Democrat, they just go down the line and vote for the Democrat. And if they're Republican, vote for the Republican. And unfortunately, they don't spend enough time to learn about a lot of the candidates. And actually, the second most popular office that they know who they're voting for is state representative, because that's the most local on the state level. So in that sense, when you get to a final election, when the governor is up in statewide offices, or when the president is up, it's going to be all these people coming out of the woodwork to vote, and they're going to vote for people who they believe have the same basic philosophies on governing.
Also, if there's a primary, I've never seen a primary on the state level for unenrolled. Only for if Tom had a couple of candidates running against him as state representative who were Democratic, we'd have a primary and your name would be out there again, constantly churning in the news cycle. Is that a benefit?
As long as you're doing good things.
If you win the primary, it's good. Any other questions? Yes, Karen.
I'd like to expound on what you were talking about regarding being passionate and running for office. And I'd like to know from all panel, in your experience, that's one of the most effective questions that any voter can ask that they want to hear the answer, which is, why are you running? And they want to get a handle on what your sense of purpose is. So in your experience, either as a candidate or just from your general experience, what would be some, of course, honest answers, but what are some effective ways for those who do want to run, effective ways of communicating why you want to run?
Well, so on the state representative level and up, there's all sorts of advocacy groups, whether it's pro-life, pro-choice, it runs the gamut. Nurses Association, Healthcare for All, what have you. And they're organized, and they have a lot of grassroots activity. And these organizations will survey candidates, and they determine who is the candidate that best aligns with their beliefs. And they disseminate that information to their supporters in your community. So if you happen to align with the group on an issue, it's great because it's a third-party validation. And that's better than just you saying, this is what I believe in, and blah, blah, blah. It's someone else saying it as well. So that was something that I wasn't as prepared for the first time I ran, was the level of, the number of organizations out there that had all these questions and wanted to know exactly how you felt about all these different social issues or what have you, and a lot of them I had not thought of. My passion was representing my community, representing Waltham, and a lot of issues I definitely had strong feelings about, and actually this last, and they still grow, this last presidential election, the victor solidified a lot of my thoughts and beliefs on the opposite side of his on a lot of issues. So you don't have to have completely thought out every single issue that's out there. It's certainly to your benefit to have done that as much as possible. But the more you're involved, the more you get to understand the issues, and the more you understand how you feel about them.
I can round that up too. As a taxpayer, I was just concerned about taxes and trying not to get nickeled and dimed every paycheck. So that was my passion. And one of the things that we did in the Republican Party was the tank the gas tax. I know there's a lot of, everybody's got their idea of what it was, and we had our idea of what it was, but it did pass. That people in the State House have to be accountable for their votes if you're going to raise the gas tax, and I want to know who it was and why, But that was my passion, and that's still a lot of, if anybody ever got an itemized bill on every tax you've ever paid, you would be appalled. I mean, even just like at the gas station alone, just like, you know, we don't see so much of it. But that's what called me in. You know, I was done. And then you look around and then you see other little, you know, other things you want to get involved in, whether it's the pro-life or the you know, the pro-choice, whichever it is. You know, you meet people from all walks. But that was definitely the passion for me. It still is, because I don't know what goes on in the city money-wise, and I'd like to know that, you know, and just put my 2 cents in, or at least make people aware of, you know, what is going on. But that was definitely my passion. So that keeps me up at night sometimes. So I'm good.
Any other questions from the audience?
Yes, sir. For Marcia, can you expound on the difference between running for just being a political activist or a passionate citizen in the United States, or a woman, as opposed to Brazil?
Well, you are saying something, I don't know if you heard about it, but the ex-Brazilian president, Dilma Rousseff, she's in US these days. She's going to be going around and going through some, you know, discourses or discussion with people. One of the things that I would say, Latino people from Latin America, from Brazil, it's almost like we are born with passion. We are made with passion. We have passion all the time. And in Brazil, I was involved with politics already before I left. I would say that I learned a lot in US that the individual have rights. Then when Karen was asking about the passion, I was thinking, we think about our passion as the one who is going to run for office. However, you are going to be fighting not for your passion. You are going to be fighting for the passion of the one who is going to be voting for you. Then, when I'm going to go and knock on the door, I'm going to say, well, I'm thinking about running for office because I want some changes. I want to, as reps say, I want to represent you. What is your passion? What's your concern? What you want to be changed in this city, in your street, in your house? Then that's what I think it's one thing. When we say you have to have passion, you have to have passion, but your passion is not yours, it's theirs. And in Brazil, it's basically the same. I would say that the difference there is that sometimes my passion there has to be basic. You know, corruption exists in all the places, even here. But there, the level would be a bit higher, the percentage would be more there. You know, and what I think is interesting, I've been living in US since 2002. I lived in Brazil part of my life, I lived in Nicaragua, I lived in Kenya, and I lived in Togo. And passion in all these countries has a lot to do with the simple fact that I want to survive, I want to live, I want to have pleasure, I want to be able to smile because my kids have food, because my kids have a shelter, because my kids are not going to be going through gas, whatever, like we just saw. Then simple things that human beings here, sometimes they take it for granted. And that's that being in US helped me to learn a lot, to see what I have too much and people that have even, I could not even say little, they just don't have it. In other countries, and even here, if you go to the south, if you go to other places, there's people that they don't have. Then I think passion doesn't have nationality. Passion doesn't have borders. Passion doesn't have a wall because it goes straight. no way, then I think that's what should push us to run for office.
Can I say, I think kind of to sum up, well, how do you get elected, right? You have to identify who will vote for you and then get them out to vote. That's all it is. And, you know, how do you identify them? You identify them by knocking on the door, by having house parties, by having a group of people that are identifying who might be with you. And there are certain issues locally, like, you know, sanctuary cities could possibly be an issue in the local election coming up this year. So if you feel strongly on one side or the other, I'm sure you would find a lot of support for your candidacy and opposition because of your stance. But that's another way to instantly get a bunch of people around, you know, your candidacy.
Yes.
I guess this question is a little bit about before running. You know, people have certain issues that, you know, they are very passionate or very knowledgeable about. But then once in office, of course, you know, you go in, you don't know everything about every issue, and you'll maybe have a new issue come up. And so I guess my question is the balance between maybe your position on something before going in office, and then when you're in office, how do you balance that position versus what your constituents now are asking you to do? Is there, I don't know if that was clear.
I'm going to jump in here right now, and then I'll give you the microphone. Being in office is not necessarily easy. You kind of have an unveiling in front of you because what you thought was simple is not. And as a constituent, I don't want to say I don't really care how you address the issue, but if you're having a change of heart, I want to know why. I want you to communicate with me that process by which you got to where you are. It's incumbent upon you as my representative to do the homework and then share the answers with me. And then I will understand to a larger extent why you did what you did, even if it is other than what I thought I would have liked, if you can understand my reasoning there. Tom, you're the one who's been living this life.
Yeah. So two social issues come to mind for me. My position on abortion and gay marriage. So being a white male, I never thought too much other than what my religious upbringing was. And so when I ran for whether, you know, if I was pro-life or what have you, so when I first ran, in my mind, you know, it was hard to figure this out because I never had to think really hard about it. So I went from not being real sure in the very beginning to an understanding that I am pro-choice over a course. I would say it's more growth than changing a position. Because along the way, there were all these smaller issues that fell into the category of whether you were pro-life or pro-choice. And each step along the way, where we get real educated on the issue by advocacy groups, people who live in the district, other legislators, so on and so forth, I found myself voting that way. The other one on gay marriage, not being gay, and I had an uncle that was gay that passed away, but he lived all over the world and we didn't really see him too much, so it wasn't something that I thought about. And I had to think long and hard about it. And so I was educated about this really and we had thousands of people from all over the country trying to reach us by email, mail, phone, what have you, come into the office. tons of people in the district. Well, I had people from both sides of the issue in my office because I just didn't have enough time to separate it all out. And just thought it through to the end and came to my decision that I was for marriage equality. And I actually believed that my career was in jeopardy when I did that. And I thought I might win because of the small portion of Lexington that I represented at the time, but I thought I was going to lose Waltham. And to my surprise, and I had doors slammed in my face and people that were my staunch supporters that weren't anymore, and death threats, and letters, anonymous letters, person saying that our child was, what kind of a Christian are you? Your child doesn't have a Christian name, and his middle name was actually a Christian name. But just things like that really get under your skin, and those things always bother the family or the spouse more than it does the candidate, because you develop a thick skin. But anyway, on that particular issue, it's just something that I never really thought of, and I had to, and I made the decision of what I wanted my kids to think about 30, 40 years down the road. Lo and behold, like in a short period of time, the whole country went that way. But at the time, we had 500 media outlets, state police, bomb-sniffing dogs, all sorts of things, because we were the first state to bring it up in a constitutional convention.
I just would like to say something that Rep just mentioned, your family. That's what I learned with the merge. One of the things that they tell us, before you decide to run for office, sit with your family, your spouse, your kids, tell them what you want to do. Ask them if they are willing to go through what we are going to go through, because the opposition is going to just search everything they can about you. Here in Walton, it seems to be quite smooth. But the higher you go, we've seen the last elections, the higher you go, the more they will dig deeper and deeper to see if they find something that they can use against you. And then, as a rep said, your son, your daughter, 12 years old, 11, 30, sees that on TV, Mom! Why didn't you tell me before? Then, do you want to go through that? Do you want your kids to go through that? Your husband? Then, think twice. And if they say, Mom, go ahead. We, as he said, you have thick skin, we too. We can, then you go for it. But sit with them before.
And just another thing to consider, and I don't want to scare anyone away with this, but for me, and I think for most, if not a lot of politicians, it's not, a nice thing about it is it's not a 8 to 4:30 job. At times it's 7 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night for long stretches, and other times it's just different. But it's 24/7, always on your mind. It's always on your mind, because there are people out there that have issues that they care about, and they want to know how you feel about it, and want you to support it or be against it or whatever, and or people asking for help, and it's just constantly, all the time, it's like you're chasing, trying to do the best job you can, because you're going to be judged on it too, on election day. So when at times it looks like a lot of fun, and it can be, it's very draining, mentally and emotionally too.
Well, I want to thank the panel so very much, and if you will kindly thank them as well.